Hey guys, it's Alexis, and I'm here today to do the I Messed Up book tag. This tag was originally published by Read Like Wildfire, and I will link her video down below. I actually saw this video on Books and Lala's channel, and you guys should check it out, which I also link down below, and you guys should check both of their videos out because they're fantastic. So the first question is a character appearance that you misread and imagined differently, and so for me, I chose Gadia from the Forsaken trilogy. I imagined this character through 3 whole books as an entirely different ethnicity than she actually was. I actually mistook her as being African American, and as it turns out, she's Caucasian, and I'm not really sure where I messed that up, but in my opinion, her character was much better as an African American. I mean, that sounds terrible to say, but her character was just like so much better as like a kick-ass lady as an African American. And anyway, it wasn't until like 4 chapters from the ending of the entire series that it said something about her pale skin, and I was like, what? Number 2 is a character name that you've been pronouncing wrong, and for me, I'm gonna have to choose Rhysand from Court of Thorns and Roses. I've been saying it like Rhysand, and it wasn't until I finished the book, found the glossary at the back that specifically says you pronounce it like Rhysand, that I was like, oh. But I'm not gonna lie, I'm probably still going to keep saying Rhysand because that's easier for me to say, and it sounds like Lysander from Shakespeare, which is from A Midsummer Night's Dream, so I like the sound of it better. So, sorry Sarah Damas, but I'm gonna keep saying Rhysand. Number 3 is an overused book trope that is your guilty pleasure, and for me that is the misunderstood villain or the villain with the tragic backstory. I know some people are exhausted with this trope, but honestly, it's my favorite. I love when a villain does all of these horrible things, and then you find out it's because they lost their wife or something like that, and they're trying to get revenge. And yeah. Number 4 is a cliche character type that you like to see on screen more than you like reading in a book, and for me, it's like the wise old sage character, which is like maybe an elder in a village, or like an old grandmother. Sometimes I don't even necessarily get the old feeling in the book, but like, you know, like in the example with The Giver, like I loved seeing Jeff Bridges play The Giver in the movie where he was, you know, aged and he was kind of had that broken down look to him, and I thought it was just such an effective visual. So I don't necessarily dislike reading the wise old sage character in books, but I definitely love to see that character archetype on film. Alright, number 6 is a word or phrase that you learned from a book, and for that I'm going to have to go with pretty much anything from Shakespeare. Most people don't realize that most of the words we use in the English language actually originate from Shakespeare. Expressions like fit as a fiddle, dead as a doornail. There's a whole bunch more. If you Google common phrases from Shakespeare, you'll be surprised at a lot of them, and that's just so cool to me. So I've picked up, as many of us have picked up, plenty of words and phrases from Shakespeare. Number 6, have you ever not read or completed a required reading book for school? And my teachers are going to hate me when I admit that, oh yes. There have only ever been maybe 4 or 5 books in my entire schooling career that I read the entirety of. The 3 worst reading books that come to mind for me are The Grapes of Wrath by Steinbeck. I just couldn't read that book. The dialogue that it was written in was so exhausting for me to read. So I didn't read very much of that book. Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens, which is really sad because I love the plot of A Tale of Two Cities, but the book is so exhausting to read because Charles Dickens was paid by the word. So he purposefully just shoves words into his sentences and paragraphs. And the last one I can think of is The Scarlet Letter by Nathaniel Hawthorne. This book is very prose heavy and not a lot of dialogue, and books like that are very hard for me to read because I'm a dialogue driven reader. So when there's just, you know, whole pages where there's no dialogue, it makes it very hard for me to read. Have you ever wanted to skip a perspective that you weren't fond of when you're reading? Firstly, I will say that no, I've never skipped the perspective in any books, just because I feel like I'm doing a disservice to the author when I do that. But I will say that in A Game of Thrones, specifically the first book, but I will say a little bit in A Clash of Kings by George R. R. Martin, Catelyn Stark's chapters I found to be very boring, and I usually dread going into them. A lot of her chapters are about being a wife and being a mother, and it's just not something that I particularly connect with, respond to, so I found her chapters very, very hard to read. They definitely get better when you get into A Storm of Swords, but yeah. Sorry, Caitlin. Have you ever canceled social plans to read a book? I don't think so. I might have been having a really bad day with my anxiety and depression and maybe canceled then and just stayed home and read, but I've never actively canceled plans because I was like, I have to read this book. So, I don't think so. Alright guys, that was the I Messed Up book tag. Again, it's originally by Read Like Wildfire, and I saw this at Books and Law, so you guys should check them out. But yeah, this was a fun tag to do, and I urge you guys all to do it. You guys should let me know down below which character appearance you guys read and imagined wrong, because that's such an interesting question to me. So, alright, bye guys.